Welcome back, YouTubers, to another video with us, the British Fist. Put it there, NJ.
Ka-ching!
And NJ just appears out of nowhere, just like Kurt Angle does on his appearances in TNA. I am the V-neck wearing, chest hair wielding Mr. Parkin, and this guy sitting next to me. What the fuck are you doing, NJ? It's NJ.
What's up?
The NJ. What the fuck are you doing, NJ? what the fuck is he doing? Comment down below what you think he's doing. I don't know. Subscribe up above, of course. Like this video and comment your thoughts on this video down below.
And make sure you contact us in the links in the description box below.
Yes, of course. Today's video is going to be something a bit different. Usually on Wednesdays we uploaded the SummerSlam review for our SummerSlam review series, but now that's over. We're going to be uploading more topical videos from now on, just things that are talking about general fixes or things that we can think of in the wrestling industry at the moment. And what we're going to be talking about in this video is we're going to talk about ways that we think Smackdown could be improved, because it is one show we definitely feel needs improvement, isn't it?
Because at the minute we have like Raw, which has been great for a long time.
Oh, calm down.
And then it comes to the end of the week where you're thinking, another wrestling show, good, 2 wrestling shows in 1 week. We need to have the other one, maybe just as good as Raw.
Yeah. So if you saw our Q&A yesterday that we did, you'd have seen that we booked Smackdown in terms of the feuds that we would give for SummerSlam. And what we did in this, we pre-announced matches 2 weeks ahead of time. We did specific feuds, there as well. That's the kind of way we would book Smackdown generally. And also, I put up a Reasons Why Smackdown Sucks video, which we'll link in the description box below so you guys can check out our video response. But there's 2 videos there that pretty much highlight either the problems, which in my video, and also what we would do in that Q&A. So it's something useful. But we're just going to go through ways that we think Smackdown could improve and, give our suggestions as to how it can improve. How are we going to start, NJ? I think the most obvious one to begin with
is going to be the booking.
Yeah, because at the moment, SmackDown's booking decisions are very questionable. There's a lot of clean finishes and a lot of matches there which shouldn't really be there at all. Like, for example, last week on SmackDown, Del Rio versus Daniel Bryan. Why was that happen? Why did that happen? When, for a start, you don't need Daniel Bryan, or you don't need Alberto Del Rio, but you need Daniel Bryan to get that push because he's got money in the bank.
That's very much so.
And you have Del Rio win it.
And we've seen that match before, so they've had 2 weeks for it, so stuff like that. And you're just thinking, you've got a whole 2-hour show, and you're meant to fill it up with matches that are going to hype for your pay-per-view, not have pointless matches that you're just thinking, right, okay.
Yeah, which, give us... SmackDown need to give matches with meaning, because a lot of matches are just thrown in there at the last minute. We don't want thrown in matches, we want storyline development. And storyline development comes from logical booking, which is done ahead of time, with more DQ finishes, more count-out finishes, so you can develop storylines. And that is a big problem for SmackDown, isn't it? The lack of storyline development to pay-per-views.
That's very much true, because there's been plenty of times when we've had matches that are going to happen at the pay-per-view, but on SmackDown they have clean finishes, and you're just like, okay, so now you've had a clean finish, what are we going to expect at the pay-per-view? So I think stuff like that needs to stop. So
WWE really need to, on their SmackDown shows, they need to focus on the feuds that they have going as the pay-per-view and build them towards the pay-per-view. For example, last week, again, Del Rio, Daniel Bryan. We've just had a Daniel Bryan Wade Barrett match at SummerSlam. Why was it that they made Del Rio win clean when they could have had Wade Barrett come out, make a disqualification, so Del Rio doesn't get buried, neither does Daniel Bryan, and by doing that, it continues the feud on? Why didn't they do that? Why did they have to make Del Rio win clean?
And that's another point. That is a good question. But the other thing is, you're burying guys that you shouldn't on SmackDown.
Yeah.
Like Daniel Bryan. He's someone that...
Money in the Bank winner.
Yeah, and you have Wade Barrett. He's not getting buried, but he's been not doing as great as he's expected to on SmackDown. So that's a big problem. With your booking, you're burying the wrong guys.
Yeah, and it's something that I refer to a lot as outside booking. From a casual fan standpoint, these matches look great matches on card. But guys like us, that are hardcore wrestling fans, can pick the holes in this booking, in these booking decisions. And this is where you need more disqualification and count-out finishes, in my opinion.
And especially when it comes to championship matches, because you have title defences that happen on SmackDown,
which should not be on the pay-per-view.
That's another good point there.
It's a way of continuing it on, isn't it? If you have a DQ finish, it's just a way of keeping it. You have the clean finish at the pay-per-view, having a disqualification or the count-out on the show, on the SmackDown show, which is the free show.
Because that's the point. You have a month between each, or sometimes less, but we'll get into that in the video. But you have a period of time to build up to
4 weeks usually.
Yeah, up to the pay-per-view. And you don't really want to have the matches that you're expecting at the pay-per-view in that period of time. So, bad booking.
Yeah. So there's a lot of bad booking in SmackDown at the moment. But I mean, I think the main thing for me is the feuds. They need to get people into feuds because at the moment, a lot of the matches are just thrown together. There's no real meaning to the matches. WWE, especially on SmackDown, need to focus their segments on the different feuds they have because we've seen on Raw, they go into Night of Champions, they focused on their 4 championship feuds on the Raw show. It's something that SmackDown doesn't do. And I feel SmackDown, what they need to do is they need to, instead of just hyping up their main event and maybe their Intercontinental title match, they need to have 4 or 5 segments in the show which show 5 different feuds, continuous feuds going into the pay-per-view, rather than just random put-together matches, which on the outside look great, but on the inside are booked, you know, like when we see, they're booked like shit.
That's very much so, because on SmackDown you have wrestlers that can make a possible good feud.
Yeah.
Like, you have this whole, maybe, the Cody Rhodes, well, you used to have Cody Rhodes and Daniel Bryan, that could have led on so better than what it did.
Yeah, Sheamus, Mark Henry, or Daniel Bryan, Wade Barrett. There's so many possible feuds you can go with there. They just haven't. They just don't seem to either continue it or don't seem to develop them. I mean, we saw Daniel Bryan and Cody Rhodes feud last about 2 months. Did that make the pay-per-view ever? No, because you couldn't develop a storyline between the two.
The only one that they've done well with, which is finished now, is the Orton and Christian.
That's because it was their main event one. They can't have 2.
Matches before that, I think they need to have more importance to them.
Yeah, not just the main event. Don't just focus on the main event and make the rest of it filler. Make 4, maybe 4 or 5 feuds that you could go into the pay-per-view with, because we saw, remember a Capital Punishment? They had 2 SmackDown matches and 6 Raw matches. That really does show you how, you know, how little booking they've done and how much little pay-per-view hype they've done for SmackDown, really, doesn't it? And that's one thing they need to do more. Build to matches that they can have on the pay-per-view.
I think that's very much so, very much true, because that also brings us on to our next point, which basically affects the movement of SmackDown.
You're talking about the roster?
The roster is a big deal on SmackDown.
Yeah, we've seen that SmackDown doesn't have the best of rosters. They could still use the roster they have to make feuds, but they don't have the best roster to be able to switch around, you know, some matches, make tag matches and stuff like that. So what we feel SmackDown needs to do is bring in some more wrestlers, even if it's from FCW or from Raw. They need to somehow bring in some more wrestlers on Raw, from Raw or to FCW or from elsewhere.
This basically brings up, again, we're talking a lot about this, it's because it's basically what SmackDown concentrate on, the main event. That's why they had that Christian Orton thing going on and on, because they couldn't do anything else. They couldn't bring another wrestler into the main event.
Yep.
So, to be honest, if they had better roster, like in the Attitude Era, a bit after that, they had wrestlers that could go on against each other, make interesting matches, but they just can't do that on SmackDown now.
Yeah, there's not the variety that you used to have back then, especially on the show as well. As a weaker main event as SmackDown. You know, wrestlers like, there's a lot of wrestlers on Raw at the moment that aren't being used very much. Like Jack Swagger, you know, guys like Drew McIntyre aren't being used very much. Why aren't guys like that on SmackDown where they could be featured prominently in some kind of feud or even matches, you know, to fill time up on SmackDown, which isn't down to like video packages from the Vault segments or Raw recaps?
No, because like before all the past drafts we've had, SmackDown did have wrestlers that you think this could be a possible main eventer, the way he's been built up.
Ziggler, for example.
Drew McIntyre.
Yeah.
So you've had wrestlers that could have been the main event, but you just moved them around thinking it'll work out for you. But sadly, as you've seen on SmackDown now, no.
Yeah, so even, what I will say is, even if you have, like you saw Justin Gabriel and Tyson Kidd. I know Tyson Kidd isn't a big wrestler in WWE, but he's a guy who obviously is very technically adept in the ring. He's come from the Hart family line. You know, why can't they use him in some kind of feud? Why are they just having him job out every week? Could they not make him a feud between maybe him and Justin Gabriel? You know, why is it just one match one week, jobbing to someone else the next week? You know, or even a guy like Sin Cara, have him go against Tyson Kidd. Make that a feud.
Because with Sin Cara, as he's still new into this WWE, he needs to start having feuds that actually builds him up to something.
And we've seen guys like Tyson Kidd can have good matches with people like Justin Gabriel and Sin Cara, so why not? It just seems like, I don't know, they don't have much faith in him, but I mean, people like Tyson Kidd, they need to have faith in. Justin Gabriel, you know, young talent.
Because the thing is, again, we're seeing repeated matches that have happened in the past.
W.O. Daniel Bryan, Cody Rhodes, Daniel Bryan. So many.
So we're seeing repeats, which is a problem, because, again, with their roster is just not, like, adding up. They're having wrestlers that are not being used, like Dan said.
Yeah.
They had wrestlers that have just been moved to the wrong show. So they've had so many things that have messed up their roster that's making the matches repetitive.
Yeah, definitely. And you really need to highlight more SmackDown matches on your pay-per-views. I'm sorry, but you need to treat Raw and SmackDown as if they're equal, and you need to get feuds on Raw and SmackDown so that they can feature prominently on the pay-per-view. And at the moment, it seems like they're just making SmackDown that B show, and it's it's not very good to see, is
It's
it?
not very good because obviously SmackDown is a big part of wrestling, even though it's bad rating. Because now they're having this combined pay-per-views. SmackDown has to have importance at pay-per-views too.
One big thing for me here is the lack of storylines. Now, we talked about feuds, but why can't SmackDown seemingly make storylines that we can care about? We used to have storylines like, you know, Kane and Matt Hardy and, you know, stories like that. But it doesn't seem like SmackDown can really create storylines that we can really buy into and emotionally invest ourselves into. Like, Orton and Christian was really the only one I can think of.
Well, let's rewind. The build-up to SummerSlam. Because that's the thing is, because we had great build with Raw, as we saw.
Yeah.
We had the whole big draw, how they brought the whole Cena and Punk thing. They made that huge. And the SmackDown, things SmackDown SummerSlam matches, what did we have?
Orton, Christian,
Well,
Barrett, Bryan.
even though that wasn't
Announced.
build,
No.
announced.
Sheamus, Mark Henry.
Sheamus, Mark Henry.
We see that has gone.
That was, it looked good going in, because obviously you had Sheamus being a face and that, and Mark Henry the monster, but that just didn't go anywhere. So I think that the storylines definitely went downhill fast.
I think the problem here for WWE is lack of long-term planning. I think if WWE, what they used to do is they used to plan feuds long-term, what they're going to do. I know there's a lot of changes, but they just need to highlight more feuds, more storylines than the ones we get at the moment, and create long-term plans for these storylines rather than just book their shows on the day, because that's what it seems like. It just seems all last minute. They need to use long-term planning writing, because that seems to be their one main problem at the moment with the writing and the storylines.
That's very much true. And now we're just looking at it thinking, is it going to improve with their storylines? But we've got this next pay-per-view coming up. And at the moment, I know it's only been a week after SummerSlam, but we've not got a proper feel to it, as we said in our review. Just not even a thing compared to what Raw gave us. Yeah.
A couple more points we could talk about. Go live. No spoilers.
Big.
For NJ, that is a big point, so I'll let you talk about this for a little bit.
Okay, I'm going to make this as quick as I can. Basically, Raw, you don't know what's going to happen. Thinking, oh, I can't wait to Raw.
So always
see what happens. That's it. But with SmackDown, I'm just going to check spoilers because they're spoiling for on the internet, and you're just like, oh, okay, SmackDown's not looking that good this week. If you didn't have all that, if you was live, even if SmackDown's rubbish, you wouldn't know that. You have to watch it to find that out.
Exactly. The filler, I think, is another thing. SmackDown has, from the Vault segments, Raw recaps, a lot of filler in their shows, and it just seems like it could be used, the time could be devoted to other things that are more important, rather than have a Raw recap or from the Vault, because they're pointless, aren't they?
In some cases, these, as you said, the fillers make matches shorter, and that is big disappointment, because some matches you're expected, oh, this should have gone on longer because of these two great wrestlers in the ring. So the filler does affect SmackDown's matches. Yeah, so basically what we would get rid of that from the Vault segment because it's so pointless sometimes. Replays of Raw. Some of them are important, but some of them you just think not needed. Why not use SmackDown to concentrate on SmackDown? Why not have SmackDown recaps? You know, not long ones, but SmackDown recaps to help to show last week and how the storyline is developed. For do you know what I mean? It would be an idea because even though big things happen on Raw, that was on Raw. Yes. We're not going to forget what happened on Raw, but you've got to concentrate on your show, SmackDown show. So, yeah. So get rid of we would propose to get rid of the filler. Get some filler in, but make it SmackDown related. Because it needs to concentrate on the show itself, which is SmackDown, not a Raw, or a past match, that doesn't really have too much relevance to SmackDown. That's true. And the thing is, what I kind of miss is backstage segments sometimes relate to, their match. You have more backstage interviews and that. All that was good. And I'm just thinking, they still do it, but not as much as they used to. I'm just thinking, that could be added back in. And also, I still feel that SmackDown could do with maybe a couple more promos. To develop storylines, to give us characters. Do you know what I mean? Like Cody Rhodes, give him promos so he can develop some kind of storyline, because we know he's great on the mic. Because we don't really want to give all the mic time to the main eventers. Because obviously, the matches before, as I've said before, are still important. So give it to Cody Rhodes. Give it to maybe Daniel Bryan, Justin Gabriel, any people like that. That are in Wade Barrett. We've seen that he makes it. Exactly. So give him more. So so mic's time for other lower wrestlers would be an idea. Guys like Sheamus could do great on the mic, especially in developing their face character, or even a Mark Henry, but he's got a bit of mic time, but not significant amount of mic time. No, but I think the mic time would give their matches later in the night, next week, would be beneficial. Yeah, so we see Raw give a lot of mic time to like Ziggler, A-Ray, Mid-Causa, so SmackDown need to do it too. Especially if they're going to fill this time in, which we have announced is we would get rid of.
So put a couple more promos in there to develop storylines and to develop characters that we can buy into.
We've seen on Raw, we can name wrestlers that make great promos. There are wrestlers on SmackDown that can make them, but SmackDown just don't give it to us.
No. Stop shoving Orton down our throats. I think that is another big thing that we would get rid of.
Big one.
Especially in the main event.
That's true. I know he's meant to be SmackDown's draw, but there is other wrestlers that could quite easily, if you give them mic time, if you give them more chances to be in the main event, they could do better at being the main event.
We're just fed up of SmackDown ending with Orton. I mean, can we not have something else? Can we not have some other people in the main event? I mean, the main event scene is something we're going to talk about in a minute, but, you know, stop shoving Orton down our throats. I know he's probably the only real main event guy you have on there, which is a problem because you kind of need more than one, but stop shoving him down our throats. You know, get someone else in there, like a Sheamus or a Wade Barrett, someone else who can work a mic. Well, we can't work a mic, so fuck that.
No, but like I said, if they take the chance and give us another wrestler in the main event scene, it could be so interesting. It could make us think, oh, what's going to happen next week? So, just get rid of all in the main event. Also, what we can talk about here is ideas for the main event scene, because at the moment we've seen Orton in the main event scene ever since he came from Raw. You know, what ways do you think SmackDown can improve in their main event? Well, again, it was a bad thing, but they had the Battle Royal, which was the number contender for the main event. That was interesting because obviously it weren't Orton, it was basically a match that's going to lead on. So that was quite interesting. So they did stuff like that, stuff that's going to have importance for the later on in SmackDowns. Yeah,
I just think for once you need to get Orton out of that title picture, get him in a feud with someone else, and have some other people in this title picture. You know, I mean, the draft really fucked SmackDown over in the main because they had a top heel in Raw in Alberto Del Rio, and they had a top face in Edge. I know he was retired, but could they not have adjusted to that? They gave them Orton, but they didn't really give any of them any other main event stars that they could use in that main event scene. So one thing I guess we would try and do is to try and get some main event guys from Raw onto SmackDown somehow.
Well, the way I'm seeing it is that they've got the rest they've got now, like Sheamus.
They could go up to the main event.
He needs to be pushed out. I know they put Mark Henry up there, but that's not going to lead anywhere. Like there's wrestlers, they've got wrestlers, but they're just slowly. Like we have Cody Rhodes, we thought could be the main event, but he's back at the mid card. And he's going to be built. So I'm thinking, they're just taking their time bringing people up, which is a problem. So I'm thinking, going back to your Raw thing, bringing Raw wrestlers in that could be moved on to SmackDown against the main event.
So guys like Morrison, R-Truth, guys that have been promoted on Raw but not completely, could be promoted on SmackDown if need be. We've seen them on SmackDown before. Del Rio is another example of a guy who could have stayed on SmackDown, but obviously he's the WWE champion on Raw now. But just get more different people in that title picture. It's not hard. Surely not a hard thing to do. They did it in the Attitude Era. They had Austin, Rock, Triple H, Undertaker, Kurt Angle, Mankind.
Both shows were together back then, so they could go on either show. But now they've done it separate shows, and SmackDown. It's all relating back to the roster.
Yeah.
So they need not to have another draft because that's not going to be till later on. They need to somehow get other wrestlers on their show.
Definitely. Also, I think an idea we could use. Why don't we make SmackDown tag team exclusive? Like, give the Divas to Raw because let's face it, Raw don't really need the tag teams on their show because they have enough to fill. But give SmackDown the tag teams championship so they could feature all the tag teams on one show rather than having them on both and have mixed up feuds everywhere and about.
I guess again I'm going to be too slow like this. As much as I like to have the tag teams all making SmackDown big, because people love tag teams so they can tune into SmackDown. The thing is, having matches on Raw so it has more of a build-up, so you have Raw and SmackDown to build up tag matches, that'd be interesting, but having it exclusive on SmackDown would definitely get people to tune into it.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the tag division now, if you separate it on two shows, you don't really have many tag teams, so combine the little amount of tag teams you have onto one show, and you could have number one contendership matches, you could have a match, you could have tag team championship matches on SmackDown, which I feel SmackDown could use that to fill some of the time they have. Especially if they're going to build feuds towards pay-per-views, it could be something they could. Especially if Triple H is going to revive the tag team division, like he said, use it on SmackDown, revive it on SmackDown. It's just an idea that we could possibly use on SmackDown.
It would be a possible idea, yes.
Anything else about that, or
that's about it, really.
Right. So don't make SmackDown feel like a B show.
If we combine all our points together, I think the whole the reason I think it's seen as the B show is because basically the whole live thing makes it the main thing. And I think the wrestlers, like, it's been said before, wrestlers are being put onto SmackDown just to build themselves up before they get onto Raw.
Exactly. So why not get rid of that whole B show feeling? You know, have an equal roster. Stop using SmackDown as a place to showcase. I mean, I don't mind SmackDown being used as a showcase to guys like Sin Cara, but get equal rosters on your show. I mean, surely you want both your shows to be equivalent. I know Raw gets more ratings, but surely SmackDown can get more ratings if you treat it like another A show. Surely.
I think.
And there's so many ways you can do that. Roster, for example.
That's true.
Go. Easy.
They definitely need to have more importance on SmackDown, which is the whole video is about. SmackDown needs importance, and especially when it comes to pay-per-views, because when you think of SmackDown matches at pay-per-views, there's not much excitement to them, which is basically the reason of all these points.
Yeah, and stop putting so much emphasis on Raw. I mean, Raw is better, but that's only because we haven't seen what SmackDown can really give us, especially in terms of if they have a better roster, or if they have better booking, like Raw has. It seems like sometimes they make SmackDown deliberately look bad, so Raw looks better.
I think that's the case, but like I said, again, I can't see WWE even trying with SmackDown, like trying to do these ideas or try and do it better.
No.
So that's the sad thing. They just seem to concentrate more and more, make more the money puller.
Yeah. So we've had a bit of a rant, but we've also suggested some things that SmackDown can do. Let's just hope WWE think of something to make SmackDown a little bit better, so we can stop ranting about it every fucking week.
I think if they did ever improve SmackDown, ratings would go up. They'd have people wanting to tune into SmackDown more. You'll have people. I know the YWC is not a big part of the WWE, but you'll have people on here who'll make SmackDown reviews. They'll say positive stuff about it. So I think, to be honest, just go for it.
There are more Raw reviews in the YWC than SmackDown reviews, and I can understand why. I mean, we review SmackDown every week, but it's usually bad. So why would anyone want to review a bad show, apart from us, because we want to get our opinions out there, of course.
We do. So I'll say, again, we've named about 9 points. Guys, I'm pretty sure you can name at least a few more. Please leave them in the comment section below. Yeah,
get your thoughts, not only your thoughts, but your suggestions as to how SmackDown can improve. The most important ones, in your opinion, get them down below. That we've talked about ours. We want to hear yours. So that's been it from us, the British Fist.
Good.
I have been Mr. Parkin, and this guy here next to me has been the fist pumping NJ.
What's up?
And we'll make sure to vlog again soon. Taking a little quote from you there.
That's it.
Thank you very much for watching, guys, and goodbye.
Goodbye.